everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, think about it. The absolute roar of the stadium, instantly replaced by this terrifying, echoing silence. Welcome to the ultimate premium explainer. Today, we're looking at a franchise that is standing on the absolute razor's edge of history, the Washington Commanders. We are staring right down the barrel of the 2026 season right now, and let me tell you, this is no ordinary year. No, this is a literal war of attrition. It's a grueling, physical, and deeply psychological battle to reclaim an entirely lost identity. We're going to dive deep into the schematic overhauls, the microscopic adjustments, and the brutal, unfiltered reality of a roster trying to survive the absolute most unforgiving gauntlet in the National Football League. So, let's dive into this, because the stakes have literally never been higher.
I want you to really, truly let this number sink in for a second. 10. 10 exact games. That is exactly how much time Offensive Rookie of the Year Jayden Daniels missed last season. And, he wasn't just dealing with one fluke incident either. This was a cascading, catastrophic physical breakdown. We're talking knee, hamstring, elbow injuries, just one after another, completely dismantling the very foundation of this entire offense. Look, 10 games in the NFL isn't just a bad stretch of the schedule, it's an eternity. It is more than enough time for an entire franchise trajectory to be completely, utterly shattered. It completely disrupted their rhythm, it eroded the chemistry, and honestly, it left a massive, gaping wound right in the heart of their offensive identity. You don't just bounce back from losing your franchise quarterback for 10 games. The trauma of that absence, it lingers in the building. It completely dictates every single microscopic decision made in the offseason.
But hey, real quick, before we dissect exactly how they plan to protect him and rebuild this completely broken system, we need to talk about you. Because if you want to truly understand the game beneath the game, the granular X's and O's details that actually decide championships, you are absolutely in the right place. Subscribe to NFL Nexus right now. Like this explainer. And definitely comment your thoughts below because I want to know, do you think this rebuild is actually going to work? And look, if you want to elevate your understanding even further, support the channel by becoming a channel member. This explainer right here, this is the premium exclusive breakdown that diehard fans absolutely cannot afford to miss. We don't just read the headlines around here, we completely dissect the anatomy of the sport. Now getting back to Washington, the sheer, dizzying whiplash of this franchise is just so hard to process. Just think about the painful, brutal contrast between these two seasons. Back in 2024, the Commanders completely shocked the world, right? A 12-5 record, this magnificent, totally improbable run all the way to the NFC Championship game. The city was absolutely electric, the foundation felt invincible, and because of that, they were rewarded in 2025 with 5 primetime games, including the ultimate spotlight, Christmas Day. They were the main event. And then, the floor just completely fell out. A total, devastating collapse to 5-12. The emotional devastation of that fall from grace literally cannot be overstated. I mean, imagine reaching the absolute pinnacle, feeling the warmth of that championship spotlight, only to be violently dragged right back down to the basement of the league just 1 year later. The psychological whiplash of going from 12 wins all the way down to 5 wins, that creates a level of desperation inside a building that absolutely forces drastic, monumental changes.
And it's exactly that desperation that brings us to the key moment of the 2026 offseason, the turning point, the changing of the guard. Veteran offensive guru Cliff Kingsbury, he's gone. Enter David Blau. Now, Blau was the assistant quarterbacks coach here in 2024 and 2025, which means he knows Jayden Daniels intimately. But here's the kicker. Blau turns just 31 years old this July. 31. He is taking the reins of an offense that absolutely must protect its most valuable asset, and he is instituting a radical, fundamental shift. They're calling it the under-center experiment. And guys, this isn't just a tiny tweak to the playbook. No, this is a complete, foundational rewiring of the Washington Commanders' offensive DNA.
I want to obsess over Blau's exact words here for a second because this is absolutely crucial. He said, it opens up some different schemes in the run game, different play actions and keepers and getting them on the perimeter. Let's really read between the lines here. When he says different schemes, he's talking about completely changing the angles of attack. When he says getting him on the perimeter, he's openly acknowledging that keeping Jayden Daniels as a stationary target sitting back in the pocket is a literal death sentence for his health. Every single syllable of this quote is just drenched in the realization that the 2025 philosophy completely failed them. They have to move him, they have to hide him, they have to use the threat of the run to completely paralyze the defense, essentially buying Daniels those precious microscopic fractions of a second he needs to just survive the play. So the crucial question is, how does this actually work on the grass? Let's really drill down into the granular schematic details here, the micro adjustments. First, increased under-center snaps. Why does this matter so much? Well, think about it. When a quarterback is just standing back in the shotgun, The linebackers can read his eyes instantly. The entire geometry of the play is just laid bare from the snap. But when you move under center, the quarterback actually turns his back to the defense for a split second during his drop back. And that split second is literally everything. It creates this massive visual disruption for the linebackers. It forces them to hesitate, even just for a moment. Combine that hesitation with revamped run schemes and super heavy play action integration. The raw physics of this shift means defensive ends can't just pin their ears back and blindly launch themselves at the quarterback anymore. Because if they rush too fast, a quarterback keeper or a perimeter movement design is going to completely exploit their own momentum and burn them. This entire philosophy, this whole shebang, is essentially an architectural fortress designed specifically to protect Jayden Daniels' knee, hamstring, and elbow.
But look, even the most well-protected quarterback in the world still needs someone to actually throw the ball to. And that brings us to a terrifying, undeniable reality. 47%, nearly half. I say this with a heavy heart, but a staggering 47% of the team's touchdown receptions from last year are potentially gone, just evaporated into thin air. You do not just scheme your way out of losing nearly half of your entire scoring production in the red zone. That creates a massive, suffocating void in the weapons room. It means opposing defensive coordinators can dedicate literally all of their resources, all of their double teams, to the very few remaining threats left on the field.
Let's look at the actual human cost of that 47%, because the departures are monumental. Deebo Samuel, we're talking 72 receptions, over 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's currently a free agent. Zach Ertz, their ultimate veteran safety blanket, who was literally second on the team in touchdowns, suffered a devastating late-season ACL tear and is highly unlikely to return. So who steps into this high-pressure crucible? The rebuild hinges on some incredibly unproven commodities. The Commanders brought in veteran tight end Chigo Okonkwo, and they are placing a massive, microscopic focus on third-round rookie wide receiver Antonio Williams out of Clemson. Think about that. They are actively relying on a rookie to immediately decipher highly complex disguised NFL coverages. And they're doing all of this while an already injury-prone Terry McLaurin, who, keep in mind, missed 7 games himself last year, tries to basically carry the entire passing game on his back. The pressure that is mounting on this young core right now is absolutely immense.
And hey, if you think the offense has questions, wow, wait until we look at what was happening on the other side of the ball. The statistics from last year aren't just bad, they're genuinely horrifying. Points allowed per game, 26.5. That ranked 27th in the National Football League. Passing yards allowed, 28th overall. Rushing yards allowed, 30th overall. This wasn't just a bad defense having an off year. This was a historically porous, structural collapse. They were bleeding yardage on the ground. They were getting absolutely carved up in the air. Opposing offenses were not just beating them, they were dictating terms to them for 60 minutes. To really set the stakes for 2026, you have to understand that this defense was fundamentally, completely broken at every single level.
To fix a collapse of that magnitude, you can't just change the scheme, you have to change the entire psychology of the room. Enter new defensive coordinator Durante Jones. Now, Jones spent the last 3 years under Brian Flores in Minnesota, and Flores is widely considered one of the most highly regarded defensive minds in the game today. And look at the specific word Jones uses here, aggressive. By nature, we want to become more aggressive, attacking blocks, defeating blocks, tackling. I really want to linger on this psychological demand. Aggressive doesn't just mean bringing wild zero blitzes every single down. In the Brian Flores coaching tree, aggressive means pure violence at the point of attack. It means when a 300-pound offensive lineman fires out at you, you don't just hold your ground and try to survive, you violently defeat the block. You do the routine things routinely, but you do them with a terrifying, unrelenting intensity.
And this approach brilliantly illustrates the very methodical pipeline of talent they've brought in to execute this violent vision. Step 1. Revamp the edge. They went out and signed Odafe Owe and Kalavon Chasen. And by the way, Chasen is coming off an absolute career year in New England. They desperately need that raw athleticism on the perimeter. Step 2. Solidify the interior. They did that by adding linebacker Leo Shinnell. But Step 3 is where the ultimate franchise-altering risk lies. Handing the green dot to rookie linebacker Sonny Styles, the 7th overall pick out of Ohio State. Let's unpack the immense pressure of the green dot for a second. The green dot is the actual radio receiver inside the helmet. It means a rookie is responsible for receiving the play call from Durante Jones, translating that call, communicating all the checks to the 10-year veterans on the field, getting the front of line, and identifying the offensive motion, all in about 15 seconds before the ball is snapped. Head coach Dan Quinn says there are absolutely no limits on what Styles can become, but asking a rookie to be the central nervous system of a defense that ranked dead last a year ago, that is a monumental gamble.
And they have to put all of these new, completely untested pieces together against a genuinely terrifying schedule. On paper, you see a .502 combined opponent win percentage. That sits right around the middle of the pack, right? Do not let that number deceive you. That .502 masks a truly brutal and unforgiving gauntlet. It is a complete statistical mirage. Because when you look at the actual teams, the actual rosters on this slate, you realize very quickly that the Commanders are walking straight into a buzzsaw.
You really have to frame this schedule not merely as a list of games, but as a grueling, physical, exhausting chess match. They are facing some absolutely elite offenses this year. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Los Angeles Rams, the Dallas Cowboys twice, the Seattle Seahawks, the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is going to test Durante Jones's brand new aggressive defense immediately, right out of the gate. And on the other side of the ball, Jaden Daniels has to somehow survive some elite, utterly terrifying defensive fronts. The San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Houston Texans, the Minnesota Vikings. Every single week is a grinding war of attrition that heavily threatens the team's incredibly fragile depth. The Commanders built up their depth chart in the offseason precisely because they know, for a fact, this schedule is going to put bodies in the medical tent.
Which ultimately brings us to the final unresolved reality of this entire explainer. They have a brilliant young offensive coordinator completely changing the geometry of the offense to protect their star. They have a highly touted defensive mind demanding absolute violence at the point of attack. They have a rookie wearing the green dot, calling the shots, and a franchise quarterback returning from the dark abyss of a shattered season. But the question remains, just hanging heavily over the entire facility in Washington. Will this rebuilding core actually survive the brutal, physical attrition of 2026? Or is this battered franchise simply destined to watch history painfully repeat itself? The pieces are all on the board, but the war is literally just beginning.